Welcome to Little City, Big Voices, a podcast where we share the real stories of those who love, empower, and champion children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities and mental health challenges. These are the voices of a community united by compassion, driven by purpose, and deeply committed to creating a world where everyone belongs. I'm your host, Rich Bobby, CEO of Little City. Little City's vision is to provide a place where everyone can feel included in their community, have someone they can call a friend, and continuously learn and build new skills. This is episode 4 of Little City Big Voices, and it is my privilege and opportunity to introduce you to one of our star direct support professionals, otherwise known as DSPs. And we want to discuss the power of DSPs and how they are making a powerful difference that make the lives of the people we support and serve thrive. So with that, our guest today, I'm honored and delighted to have James Sitati, who's been a DSP at Little City for more than 20 years, working in our adult residential program, where James has helped make a home for many residents who live with us on campus. So welcome, James.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I typically start, James, with the question of, tell us about you. Who's James? What's your story? And how did you land at Little City?
Wow, weighty question. Like you said, my name is James. Been a DSP for 22 years, actually. Weirdly enough, this past Monday was my anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah,
Nice.
I made 22 years, 8/18. So was hired in 8/18, 2003.
Wow.
Did not think I would last that long. Uh, I started off much younger, but I was in school. So lived with my brother. We were both in school, just the two of us. So we needed a way to pay the bills pretty much. I couldn't be in school full time. So had to get a job. I had a cousin who had worked here and he told me about Little City. Did not know anything about Little City at that time. I knew what they did. I knew the mission, but I didn't know much more than that. We lived in Palatine, so it wasn't a long drive. Came out here, did the interview, and then I went on with my life. Then maybe about a couple of weeks later, I got a call from someone affiliated with the Little City, and they told me to come in for a little bit more of a conversation, and that's how I ended up here. Even then, it was just something on the side to pay the bills while I got through school. Started looking for jobs and interviewing, but it just wasn't that easy to get jobs. But I still had this one. So it became a side job to the main job, and been here ever since. Usually that's what you'll find with even my other coworkers. They're either in school while they're here or start school while being DSPs, and somehow the mission we do just ropes you in, and the next thing you know, you've been here 22 years like James. So
Wow. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you had really no idea what you were walking into.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Even when you go through training, in fact, I talk to new hires now that have been here this long, and I always ask them that one question: have you ever been a DSP before? Some will put up their hands, and I don't so much focus on those because they kind of know what they're getting into. I always look to those who've never done this before, which was me 22 years ago. My cousin who'd been a DSP, he had a girlfriend at the time, and she told him he wouldn't last 2 months. She'd worked as a DSP before, so she knew what she was talking about. She's like, James is not going to last 2 months, and 22 years later, I'm still here. It is a challenging job, and it is something that if you've never done before, immersing yourself in that world takes a lot. I was not a very patient person. I don't think I'm the most patient now, but I have increased my patience 100-fold just by working in this field, because you need patience. You don't have patience, you're not going to last. I was a very impatient human being 22 years ago. So you learn stuff. You learn stuff that you did not know that you were going to learn. I always tell my friends, actually one of my coworkers I've worked with for a long time, I always tell her that I did not know how much I did not know about the human brain until I started working here.
Interesting.
And watching people with developmental disabilities, you make all these assumptions. And once you see what they're capable of, what they're not capable of, and what they're capable of, it surprises you. And it leads you to be humble and to realize just how much we don't know or understand about how the brain works. Um, yeah, so that's been a very interesting experience. The whole 22 years just figuring that out and seeing for example, you'll find someone who can play beautiful music on a guitar, but doesn't quite know how to figure out how to tie their shoelaces.
You
But I, for example, who would have no problem tying my shoelaces, cannot play a musical
can't
note.
play it in, yeah,
I can't sing. I mean, but this individual can listen to a tune and then a few minutes later play it almost perfectly.
yeah,
How does that work? That's what I mean when I say we barely have cracked what the human brain is capable of. So we make all these assumptions about people who have developmental disabilities and say, okay, they're not capable of this and not capable of that. But being here this 22 years has taught me that what they are capable of is sometimes surprises you. Even another way to think
yeah,
about it is we used to have a very interesting, before COVID, we had this art center, and I know we're working towards getting something just like that again. And my friend used to work there. She was the DSP who helped in the art center for the day program in in adult services. And you'd walk in there and see what these people were producing art wise, whether it was pottery, whether it was paintings, other pieces of art. And again, I am useless in that field. So watching these people and what the facilitators were able to draw out of them, it's amazing. Even when I walk in this building, the paintings on the wall that are from those days when those people are painting. Some of our people who've past residents have had whole art shows revolving around them.
yeah.
It's amazing. But these are people with developmental disabilities. So we make all these assumptions. Us as a community out there who don't have developmental disabilities, we make all these assumptions about these people. But it's only after I started working here, because like I said, I came here with absolutely no experience, no understanding of what a person with developmental disabilities is. And I learned that here. So it's been interesting.
Wow. Again, it's so powerful, and it does raise a critical point that I want to highlight that I feel like you're saying, James, is that somebody who has an intellectual and developmental disability can also be a genius.
I can also contribute a
A-
lot to
And
humanity.
that's it. Contribute to humanity and to society or community. And I think what I'm hearing you say, and it sounds like you've embraced this, is you don't look at the folks you're supporting as less than or these poor, unfortunate souls who cannot maybe able to have basic communication or struggle with basic communication or struggle with activities of daily living, but rather they are very skilled in other areas. And your role is essentially to help empower them and equip them with the support so that they can be successful.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And also, I mean, for us in direct care, we always have to remind ourselves that when we come into these homes, whether they're SILAs or group homes or whatever you want to call them, these are their residences. They are inviting us into their spaces. Sometimes, okay, for us, it's a work environment, but for them, it's this is where I live. So we also just have to be humble about that and mindful of that and respectful. That this is somebody in his or hers living space. So, for example, if I show up at your place and I'm trying to order you around and everything, this is where you live. This is where you are most
That's your
relaxed.
home.
This is your home. So, your little castle. It's a growing experience. And even now, I'm still learning. You know, haven't mastered everything in this field.
I wanna go back to you,
Mm-hmm.
James, the
Mm-hmm.
the person,
Mm-hmm.
when you started at Little City, why and I'm interested, did you start working with, kids or children who had intellectual disabilities, or
Mm-hmm.
have you always worked with, adults who have intellectual
I have
disabilities?
mainly, I'm going to say 95% worked with adults.
Okay.
Way, way back then,
Yeah.
you could cross over.
Yeah.
We don't do it so much now, but back then you could actually cross over. So I did do a few shifts in our Spruce home back then, but that was few and far between. And,
Okay.
and even if you find people who've been a Little City 20 plus years, they'll tell you that was possible. But right now, you specialize. It's like either you're in a children's or you're in adults, if you yeah, whichever group you work with. So yes, but for the most part, I've worked with adults. My first assignment, my first posting was a SILA, our Irving Park home. Back then, it was a mixed home, so it was 8. One wing was for men, one wing was for women, so it was 4 and 4. And yeah, so but for the most part, I've always worked with the adult population.
So, I definitely wanna touch on that one piece that you said. You mentioned skill set. Is that you do feel like there's a different skill set working with children who have intellectual disabilities versus adults from your experience for specifically those that may live in a residential setting like Little City that might have higher support needs?
I would have to agree with that to quite a big degree.
Not that's not better or worse. It's not judgment.
Yes,
Like
it's,
there's better
yes,
skills here or better skills there because
yes,
they're both different skill sets.
it is. And
Yeah,
if you have worked, and I do have some of my colleagues who've come from places where they work with the children's population, then they come over here and work with adults. It's different. It is definitely different. When we go for training, there are some overarching classes that we both take, whether you work with children or you work with adults. But
sure.
those who work with children, because they are more vulnerable, I would say, would require just that extra bit of training. I was talking about patience earlier, just a little
Yeah,
bit more patience, because when you get them at our level, I'm talking about in adult services. So even some of them who had a lot of behavioral challenges, by the time they get to be adults, or the time they're in their 40s, 50s, whatever, they end up calming down. When you meet them when they're teenagers, they are rambunctious, And for those of them who have a developmental disability where they don't communicate very well, you have to learn how to work with them. And sometimes that involves what you have been taught, but also being intuitive and being able to connect with this person, because every one of our youth, for example, has a different way to communicate. There are those who are very verbal, very communicative verbally. And then you're lucky if you get one of those. But you may work in a home where some of them, or the majority of them, don't communicate using words. Then it's you taking the patience and figuring out, how does this person communicate? Do they use hand gestures? Do they have a way of, do they draw pictures? If they need something, do they grab you by the hand? And some of our youth, for example, are very touchy-feely. So if you are just able to let them be themselves, they will get comfortable around you and be able to show you what they mean. If you listen, for any human being, developmental disability or not, if you just take the time, they'll find a way to communicate with you. But for sure, if for those DSPs who work with children, you need just that extra bit. It's a slightly more challenging field than adult residential. Absolutely.
because
Absolutely.
your work is challenging too. I
Yes.
mean, I think it's a different
It's a
challenge.
different challenge. That's exactly how to put it.
Yeah,
It's a different
and
challenge.
this is just my own hypothesis, is that as we've evolved as a state, as a society, that some of the challenges that you're describing specifically for children who have autism or children who have intellectual and developmental disabilities that are receiving residential services, as it stands today, at least in the state of Illinois, you have to be in utter crisis in order to access services. I don't know if that was the case, James, for some of the adults you're working with who are now 60 or 50. Back in the day, they may have been able to access services
Mhm.
sooner or better or in a more efficient way. Can't go back in time to determine that. But what we do know today is that in order to get services with a residential setting for kids, families are in absolute crisis
Mhm.
by the time they reach us. So it makes sense to what you're saying
Mhm.
is that maybe even the population that's being supported has shifted over the years. Again, it's just my hypothesis.
And that would actually
Yeah.
make sense. Yeah. But yeah,
But
definitely things have changed.
so you started working with us. You were working with adults who have intellectual and developmental disabilities. We'll just say IDD for short. At what point, or was it a point, as you're working with these amazing individuals that you're like, this is what I want to do for a living?
It's interesting, and it's different for everyone, just
Yeah.
like you're saying. So for me, because we're talking about me right now, there was never an aha moment. I was always leaving Little City. I was always at the next year is my last year. Next year is my last year.
22 years later.
22 years later, next year is my last year. Let me put it this way. DSPs, we spend so much time with each other because of our shifts. We're working doubles, we're working this. So you're at work more than you're with your immediate family. It's only in conversations with my friends, and I have a couple here in Little City that I'm really, really close to, when you actually realize this stopped being a job. It became a career, it became a calling.
Mhm.
But it's only after you've been here so long and you're like, wow. And even when you look back, I mean, even this past Monday, when I think back and say to myself, it's been 22 years, it doesn't seem like it's 22 years. It really doesn't. We have a new hire in my home right now, and she's 23. And it takes a lot for me to just realize that when I was hired in, she was 1 year old. She's a 1 year old. It doesn't seem like 22 years. It does not. So there was never an aha moment. It just, you get into the routine of life. You're paying bills, you're coming to work, you're paying bills. Oops, it's Christmas. You're paying bills, you're coming to work. Oops, another Christmas. Ooh, another birthday. Next thing you know, it's 5 years, then it's 10 years, then it's 15. This is obviously the place I've worked with the longest anywhere in my life. I never thought I'd be here this long. I never ever
Mm.
saw Lil City as a career. I never did. It's just become what it has. I didn't even go to school in this field. I never even had any intention of going to school in this field. The closest I came to anything related to this field is I minored in psychology. That was the closest. And even then, I minored in psychology only because it sounded interesting. I needed a minor. I was like, psychology sounds interesting. So I did that. But never in 100 years. If you had told me back then when I was 18, 19, 20, whatever, that you're going to be working with people with intellectual disabilities, I'd have laughed in your face. No, never. I was never going in that direction. It just happened. Yeah.
So, what were you studying before you came to Little
I was
City?
always in the sciences.
Sciences. Okay.
Yes. So, like I said, the furthest
Yeah.
possibly that I could get from this,
Right.
I was that geek in school and everything. So,
Yeah.
like I said, even when I was at UIC, and this became a side. I needed something to pay the bills.
Right.
I never ever thought in 100 years that I would be here 22 years later.
Yeah.
But again, you get here and you feel like you're doing something that is bigger than you. You see yourself, and not just yourself, you see your coworkers making all this progress with people. We have an individual who moved into our home between 10 and 15 years ago, and he came straight from home. It's rare that you find those individuals. Usually they're coming from another program or another facility, but this individual came from home. Transitioning him from what he was used to at home into this type of environment was probably the most challenging thing I've ever done. Obviously, I worked with a team of people. In this field, you're always working with a team of people. It's other DSPs, it's caseworkers, it's home managers, it's directors. But that almost broke me. It was really, really hard. And this is an individual who's, I don't know how to say it, high on the autism spectrum, has challenges communicating verbally, has echolalia, from a very, very nice family. They were so humble and really trusted us. And every time the person who's the director of adult residential then went to them and would tell them, this is the challenge we're having, they'd be right there. This is the support we need from you guys. They'd be right there. So they just trusted Little City and said, you guys know best. You're in the field. We are not. Do what you can for our loved one. And he's now been with us those 10, 15 years, and he's a different person. But it was challenging. It was hard. Truth be told, I almost transferred. I got to the point where I almost just transferred to a different because he was so frustrated at this individual from Greece originally. So he spoke Greek when he first showed up. None of us speak Greek. So he'd be talking to us, the few words that he could communicate, and we don't understand a word of Greek. So he'd get frustrated. But this is the extent of his vocabulary. That's what I mean when I talk about DSPs, take direct care staff, taking the time to bond with an individual and meet that person where they are. It was a learning experience for him, the individual, and for us as well. Yeah, but we got there somehow. But it
I was gonna
wasn't
say, where is he at today
uh,
from like a skill perspective?
a totally different place. Uh,
Place. A better place?
a much, much better place. He is somebody with autism, so there's some limitations to what he can kind of do, but it amazes us, all of us, where he is. But another thing is, because when he came in, he was quite violent because of his frustration with people. So he lashed out physically. A lot of people did not want to work with him in terms of they used to be scared to come into the home because they'd ask, is he here today? Did he go home for the weekend? And when he was there, people would refuse to work or look for ways to get reassigned to another home just so they didn't have to work with him. But he's not like that anymore. You almost never hear of him aggressively. Even when he gets frustrated, he's not at that point anymore. So he has grown leaps and bounds
Because of your work and the work of your team.
because of the work of the
Yeah,
team,
yeah.
and his parents, oh my God, so grateful, wonderful people, know us as DSPs by first names, and never a harsh word for us, realizing what we do for their son, you know?
Yeah. I want to go back to a couple of things that you said. This is not just a career, but it's a calling. And so at some point along the way, you didn't have the aha moment, but at some point along the way, this is part of your life. These individuals you're supporting are other human beings that have now become part of your day-to-day life. And then you said something else about being bigger than any one of us with the work you're doing.
Mhm,
And the part I would add to this is, although I agree with you, and I hear that from many DSPs, is they look at this as a calling. They don't see themselves doing anything else but what they're doing today. I want to add to that to say you are also a professional. You are. You can do things that I cannot do. I think when we talk about DSPs, sometimes I feel like we shortchange when we say DSPs because it
mhm,
is direct support professional.
mhm,
You are a professional and working with individuals who have IDD. Think that that's something that I wanted to highlight, and you touched on it when you were talking about that family situation, is you're able to do things that I know it's a team. I know it's not just you. It's everybody, but you and the collective team that you work with day in and day out were able to do something as professionals that the family was unable to do for their own son. And I think that is something that if there's a takeaway here is the profoundness of the work DSPs do. You're not just somebody who just watches people and make sure that they don't get hurt, but to get somebody to a place where they now have skills that they didn't have before because of the constant reinforcement, doing the same task over and over again and teaching the same skill over again until eventually it sticks for that
mhm,
individual.
mhm.
Like that is the magic that I see from afar that I don't have in many ways envious of.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
yeah,
saying that
yeah.
because, yes, you don't actually think about it that way until somebody points it out to you. And yes, you're right. It's challenging work, rewarding work, but like you said, you get to the point where you are a professional and you have to look back at your wins, what you've learned, and just be, you know, grateful. Just appreciate what you've achieved in other people's lives, you know? And it's a day-to-day thing. For some of our residents with intellectual and developmental disabilities, they enrich us, but we also know that we create this environment for them to make them safe. Every single day we come to work and ensure that they're safe, able to express themselves and live, to borrow a cliche, their best lives.
I started the podcast listing our vision. And what I'm hearing you say is you are fulfilling that vision of making sure that every individual we support is part of a community, which clearly that's been the case from what you're describing, has somebody that they can call a friend and is building skills. And so that to me is very much the end game of a DSP. Every
Mhm.
day you're doing that. You're not Yes, you're keeping folks safe. That's just the bare minimum. All the other things that you do lead to that vision
Absolutely.
of those 3 areas. So
Absolutely.
could you break down, James, just for someone that has no idea of what this work entails? Like, could you break down a day in a life of a DSP?
Sure. Because facilities like this all around the country are staffed 24/7. So generally, you do have 3 shifts. If you begin with the morning shift, you are, and this is regardless whether you're working the children's side or the adult side, you are getting them up in the morning. So you helping them with ADLs, the activities of daily living. And every one of our individuals is at a different place. There are those who require minimal assistance, there are those who require a lot more assistance, and then there are those who fall somewhere in the middle. So you're doing that for them, and every home is different.
And you have to know the needs of each person.
You
So
have to
it's
know the
not
needs.
just like we
Mhm.
do the same thing for everybody.
Yeah, there is
Yeah,
no
it's every
cookie
person.
cutter
Right.
factory line kind
Yep.
of
So you
situation
have to
because
know everybody.
you have to know
Okay. Yeah.
everyone and know what each one needs. And they will tell you. If you get it wrong, they will tell you that, yes, I need help doing this, but I don't need any help doing that. So you get them through that process. You get them through their morning medication, which is important. You get them through their breakfast. And then depending on whether you're on the children's side or the adult side, it's either they're going to school or they're going to the day or to day services for the adults, also something. During the summer like this, there's day camp, there's other activities, but you're getting them ready for that. And then you're seeing them off, and
And DSPs work with them during the day.
DSPs
Yeah,
work
for
them during
adult
the day. For
services.
those,
Yeah.
for example, the day program DSPs, the adult services. So when those DSPs now will meet them at the day program and help them through, just like you're talking about, a set of skills, and sometimes it's repetition. And I know they break down their day with various activities. Sometimes it's art, sometimes it's music therapy, sometimes it's, and then they also have trips to the community. Sometimes they're going out to the library or to the mall or this and that. So you also give them a taste of what life outside of the community is like. And then at the end of the residence days, which for them is 3 o'clock or thereabouts, 2 for the kids who go to school, then they come back to Little City, either to a SILA or to a group home or whatever, or to a CLF. And then you receive them, and those usually are the second shift DSPs, ones who come in at 2 or 3. Those receive them, and you go through just like you'd receive your kid coming from school. You go through those activities, assisting them with whatever they need to do, whether it's some type of hygiene, or they're getting snacks, or they have activities like being on their iPads or this or that, and you go through that with them. Then for those who may have like, oh, I need my laundry done. Every home is different. I usually say every home is its own universe. Every SILA is its own little universe. Everything is slightly different in every SILA, every group home.
Every
There's
person
going to
is
be
different from what you're saying.
yeah, and
Yeah.
there's gonna be those with laundry days on this day or that day or whatever. But you get them through that. Then there's dinner, and again, even during meals, for example, just like we we're talking earlier, there is no cookie cutter situation. There are those who will need to be fed. There are those who you put the plate in front of them, and they're real. They know what they're doing. They know how to cut their meat. They know everything. I mean, they are able to achieve that skill without any assistance from you. So again, you meet this person where they are. You don't imagine that this is what they need. They let you know what they need. Get them through their meals, and then after meals, it might be some activity. It could be something as simple as they're gonna watch a movie, or they're just gonna go to their rooms and relax. So they're gonna, maybe it's laundry where they assist. Oh, and then there are those homes where they assist you. There are those homes where they're capable enough so that, because like I said, it's their home, so they do have chores. There'll be those who are cleaning the table, sweeping the floor, whatever it is. Some of them may only be able to assist in taking their plates to the kitchen, but they want to do it. They're proud to do it. So you let them do it because, like I said, this is their home. So, you work with them, meet them at their level. So get them through that activity. Then usually it's relaxing. There's going to be bedtime medication at some point between 7 and 9. Then for the most part, they're done for the day. You're getting them ready for the next day. But that's almost the weekdays. Weekends are a lot more relaxed because there's no rush to get them, for example, to bed so they're able to have their 8 hours for the next day. So, you almost let them do what they're doing. More
Go out in the
activities, more
community.
outings
Yeah,
on the
more out.
weekends,
Yeah,
again,
go out
depending
in
on
the community.
which. Going out to the community,
Yeah.
depending on which home and which week it is and what season, because summer has more activities than in winter, for example. But yeah, and much as, like I said, every home is different, but again, there are overarching activities that every home does.
Well, I mean, I think that's a very good summary of just that snapshot, James, of like a day in a life. I go back to something you said, is every person is unique and different. Sometimes I think when our general society thinks of people who have IDD or intellectual and developmental disabilities, is everyone is the same
Yes.
at the same level. So if
Exactly.
you met one person, the reality is if you met one person, then you met one person.
Yes.
It's just like meeting you and I.
Yes.
It's like you and I, we have some similarities, but we also have a lot of differences. Do you and I get treated the same? Let's just not assume that, well, Rich and James are both humans, so here's the music you're both going to listen to. And
Yeah.
like, well, wait, I don't like that music. So I think that's the part that I think that we should capture here too, is
Absolutely.
that every individual is unique and different.
Absolutely.
So there are folks out there who may already be DSPs, maybe folks who are considering applying to be a DSP. What would your advice be to them, James?
Keep an open mind. Be prepared to learn, but be prepared to teach as well. It's a very rewarding field if you keep an open mind. And you will be part of a larger community. And that's with your coworkers and with the people that you're providing services to. If you come into the field with an open mind, prepared to learn and to impart knowledge, you'll be successful. Being able to listen both to your coworkers and to the people that you're providing services to, you will, at the end of every day, go home knowing you made a difference. So if this is what you want to do or you're curious about, absolutely, come into the field. It's really rewarding. Just like any of our industries where we have essential workers, whether it's nurses, teachers, DSPs, CNAs, whatever, society in general doesn't appreciate you as much. Know that coming into the field, that you will give a lot, but society will looking at it, for example, from a monetary perspective, won't compensate you as much as you should be worth. Just like they don't compensate teachers as much or nurses as much. People who are essential to our community. DSPs super essential because without DSPs, a very crucial part of this society would not have people to provide services to them. But if you come into this knowing that you will make a difference in people's lives, you'll be okay. You'll be fine. You know.
You summed up very well, James. And the tagline there is that your role is essential. This
Mhm.
isn't an optional role for
Absolutely
so
not.
many people
Yes.
across not just Illinois, but the nation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's unfortunate that usually when people are looking to make cuts, they look at our field and think this is a good place to make savings or whatever it is. And this is, and it's
There
not.
needs to be more investment,
It
and
needs to be
not
not
less.
less.
Not the same, but
Yeah.
more investment,
More investment.
especially in DSPs.
Absolutely.
Because you are the backbone
Yeah.
of not just Little City, but all organizations that serve individuals who have IDD.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, James. Greatly appreciate your time. And your voice is big.
Mhm.
At Little City, every voice matters, and your story helps shape a more compassionate and inclusive world. So stay tuned for more voices, more stories, and more meaning. Visit us on our website at littlecity.org. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We're always looking for others to join our mission and share their time, talent, and treasure. Thank you for joining Little City Big Voices.
Little City is a nonprofit, for-purpose organization operating for more than 65 years, serving children and adults with autism, intellectual and developmental disabilities, and those experiencing mental health challenges. We offer services in Chicago and the surrounding suburbs, with our main service area located in Palatine, Illinois. We provide residential living arrangement services for children and adults, a therapeutic day school, adult community enrichment and day services, recreational services including amazing arts, horticulture, and special recreation services, employment services, foster care and adoption, and community mental health services. Visit littlecity.org for more information.